Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about a bunch of summer recommendations I have for you guys that you can read this summer, as well as my own summer TBR, so the books that I want to read throughout the next 3 months. So first we're going to start with all of the recommendations I have for you guys, and then we will get into the books that I want to read this summer. So number 1, we're starting with Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is, obviously it's a beach read. It is about 2 authors that switch genres, and whoever can finish their book first wins something, bragging rights, something like that. And then, obviously they fall in love. So there's that. And it's Grumpy Sunshine. She writes romance novels and he writes, dark literary fiction. That is the first one. This is highly recommended by pretty much everybody in the book community. So that's less of a niche one. Then we have The Littlest Library by Poppy Alexander. I actually read this book last summer. It's literary fiction with a romance subplot, and it's about this woman that inherits her grandmother's house in this town, and she turns the phone booth in front of the house into a tiny little library. And then it's kind of just about her life at in the new town that she moved to because she lost her job at the town she was in the beginning of the book. And she's trying to sell the house also. I don't really know what she's gonna do after that, but she's trying to sell the house. I honestly don't remember the plot of this book very well, kind of, but not the ending. I don't know, but I do remember that it was a good summer read. It wasn't my favorite book, but it was a nice little summery read, and it's about books. Who doesn't love books? There's also you can read on the cover, you can read the titles of some of the books. Well, you can read the titles of all of the books, but I think it's really cool because some of them are recognizable titles. So that's the next one. This one, The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. This is a trilogy. They're very short books. They're YA. I think they're under 300 pages. The writing is ginormous. And, well, not ginormous, but the writing's pretty big. There's big margins. It's a large font. Yeah, it's under 300 pages. And it is about these 2 families that every summer they go to Cousins Beach, and there's a love triangle between the 2 sons from one family and the daughter from the other family. It's really weird to me how that works because, just simple logic. Doesn't really make any sense how you could have I don't know. But yeah, this is a really summery read. I love the summer aspect of this book, and it is also a TV show. So, there's a new TV show for you to watch. Only the first 2 seasons are out, book 1 and book 2, but The next is actually a fantasy, but it's more romance than it is fantasy, and it's set in the summer. This is Let the Sky Fall by Shannon Messenger. I haven't recommended a Sharon Messenger book in a very long time. So this is me doing that. This is a trilogy, and it's fantasy, but it's not fantasy that's hard to... I'm sorry, I was just reading a quote in here that I underlined. The romance is amazing in this trilogy, by the way. It's definitely not the greatest romance I've ever read, but it is really good, and I did really enjoy it. And if you're just starting getting into fantasy and you love romance, I feel this would be a good trilogy to get into it, because it is definitely more romance than it is fantasy, and it's YA, and there's not a lot of world building because Shannon Messenger basically just took our world and changed a few things about it and made like this secret world within our world, if that makes sense. And this secret like group of people that can control the wind. And so this is about a teenager who thinks he's a normal human, but then he finds out that he is a windwalker, and he's kind of like, they kind of want him to be like their king because he's the last westerly, which means he's very complicated. He's native to the winds in the west, which makes no sense, but it makes sense when you read the book. And I really enjoyed this trilogy. Obviously, I think I've read it like 5 times already, like the whole trilogy. I've read the whole trilogy like 5 times. There are a lot of characters in here you are going to hate. Let me just say that right now. And just trust your instincts on who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. I definitely say that as well for that one. But that's the only fantasy I'm going to be recommending because summer is not really like a fantasy thing, but that book is set in the summer in California, and I feel like it's a good summer fantasy book. Like how do I describe this? I like associate the Let the Sky Fall trilogy with summer, if that makes sense. Then we have Tidewater Inn by Colleen Cobble. This is the first book in the Hope Beach trilogy. I really enjoyed this trilogy. It's romance suspense, I believe is what it's called when it's mystery romance. And it was really enjoyable, and I loved it. And yeah, these romances, or the like mystery aspect is always really surprising in Colleen Cobble's books, and I always really enjoy them. I will tell you, if you're not like a Christian or don't want to read books with Christian elements in them, Colleen Cobble is a Christian author, and she does write books with Christian elements in them. So if you are not a fan of that kind of thing, I wouldn't recommend her books. But I do highly, highly recommend them if you don't mind reading that stuff, or if you want to read that stuff because you are a Christian. So pretty much that whole trilogy. So Tidewater Inn, Rosemary Cottage, and Seagrass Pier. Those are the 3 books in this series. And then another Colleen Cobble book that I've read that I really loved was Strands of Truth. This was actually my first Colleen Cobble book. This one takes place after the Hope Beach trilogy. So if you want to read them in chronological order, you can. This one is a standalone. And it is about a girl trying to find her birth parents. And she ends up meeting her half-sister. And there's also a romance aspect in it, which I really love the romance aspect in this book. I think this book had my favorite romance in it that I've read out of a Colleen Cobble book. That is the Colleen Cobble books that I will be recommending. We are going back to Emily Henry for a second. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I really enjoyed this one. This one is Friends to Lovers. It's Friends to Lovers and a Second Chance. And I really enjoyed this one. This is probably I think this is my second favorite, and then Book Lovers is my favorite Emily Henry book. But I loved the summer aspects of this book. I loved that there was a then and now timeline. So you're reading about Poppy and Alex going to different places like all over the world for as cheap as they possibly can, which I think is really cool. And then Poppy actually ends up making that her job when she gets older, which would be the now timeline. And so I think it was like a really interesting premise, and I loved it. And yeah, it's just a good, Emily Henry books are always good summer reads. The next one we have is in fact Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is my favorite Emily Henry book. I really enjoyed it. It's about a agent and I believe he's like an editor or a publisher or something like that. And she is not typically like the love interest, if that makes sense. Like if you were watching a rom-com, she would be like, how do I describe this? If you were watching a Hallmark movie and the guy came from the city and then went to the small town, she would be the high-end girlfriend that he leaves for the country girl. And so this is about how even those girls can find their happy ending. It's ironic because she actually goes to a small town and does like a bunch of cliche small town stuff with her sister, and then she falls in love. There is a bookstore in this book, like an independent bookstore in this book, that I loved that being included in here, like a book about book people, but the like aspect of the book world that they are in is not what's largely included. It's more of the like what we see type thing, like an indie bookstore, like that's like as readers, like that's our territory. So I thought that was really cool and really interesting, and I loved that. So yeah, those are all of my Emily Henry recs. Those are the only Emily Henry books that I have read so far, but we will see a couple of the other ones that I want to read in a little bit. Then we have The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. This book, when I think about summer, I think about this book. Like, this book is the epitome of summer, and I am obsessed with it. It takes place in Martha's Vineyard, and I love it. There's a game of assassin in here that's like a really big part of the plot, and obviously, did I say there was a wedding? There's a wedding going on, and they're at Martha's Vineyard, which is just, I don't know, but this book is just summer. Even the cover is just, it's summer. This is one that I like highly recommend. So if you don't take anything else out of this video, The Summer of Broken Rules. Then we have an indie author, Feels Like Coming Home by Rebecca Wrights. This is a second chance sports romance. He is a NFL football star, and they were childhood best friends until something happened and they parted ways. And I loved this book. There is like grieving in this book, loss of a spouse, so probably check trigger warnings. There is anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I loved it. And yeah, I don't know. This is like a really good summer read. It is a little bit heavier than the other books that I have recommended, but it is still very good. And I really enjoyed seeing like the healing process throughout this book. So if you don't want to read a light, fluffy romance and you want something with a little bit of heavier topics, Feels Like Coming Home. I mean, this book was made for you if you want something with a little bit of heavier topics. Don't really know anybody that wants to read a book with heavier topics, but it's definitely, I really enjoyed it. And I don't really like the books with heavier topics typically, but I really enjoyed this one. And Rebecca Wrights is a really good writer. Like, I love her writing. So, there we go. Then we have Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series. This book is actually set in summer. The rest of them take place throughout like a 2-year time period after this one. I would honestly recommend this entire series you could read over summer, and I really think you could. You guys already know. If you watched my last video, my May wrap up talking about Hopeless, I'm obsessed with this series. I love the found family. I just love everything about this book. I'm obsessed with every single one of the romances in this book. I love seeing Harvey's like romance take place throughout the entirety of the 5 books. It really starts to take off in Powerless, and I really loved that, to be honest with you, to get that little like side plot of that was really enjoyable, and I was obsessed with that. So yeah, this is a really good bingeable series, and I loved it. I honestly think I could have read all 5 of these books like back to back if I had the ability to, but I unfortunately did not. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading this series, and I'm so excited to read more Elsie Silver. Then we have a duology. I actually have both books out for this one, but I forgot to grab, I don't know. Listen, we're just rolling with it at this point, okay? Little White Lies and Deadly Little Scandals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the Debutante's duology. This one isn't as talked about as her other series, The Inheritance Games and the Natural series, but this is like a mystery, little bit of romance subplot, heavy on the mystery though, and it's set in the summertime, and it's really good, and I am obsessed with it. And I love... Listen, both of these books were wild, but Deadly Little Scandals was on another level, okay? And it wasn't wild like this is too unrealistic or anything like that, or like this makes zero sense. It was like, how on earth does your brain come up with this stuff? Jennifer Lynn Barnes. That is all that I have to say. I don't really have anything else to say about this duology other than I feel like it's not talked about as much as it should be. And I really enjoyed it, and I loved it, and I was obsessed. I'm obsessed with it still. I think about it all the time. Now we are going to be getting into the books that I want to read this summer. So yeah, I have my little notepad with my list. So if you hear me fidgeting with something, it's the notepad. First book is Love and Gelato. I don't know much about this book other than the girl main character goes to Italy to find out where her mom is from and like learn about her heritage and stuff like that. And then I know the next two books, one is set in Greece and one is set in Rome. No, Ireland and Greece. Those are the next two books are set. Right now I just want to try Love and Gelato though. So yeah, I don't know why I brought up the other two, but I think it's cool that they're set in different places. I think that's what I was trying to say. Different like summer-ish countries. I don't really know how I'm describing it. Listen, obviously we're struggling with descriptive words today. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what that one is about. And I think the premise is like really cool. Next is Love and Other Words. I know this isn't technically a summer romance, I don't believe, but I just want to read it this summer. So I was like, let's just put it on the summer TBR. So I did. And I am hoping to read it this summer. Like, I really hope that I get to that one. I know it's Second Chance, Childhood Friends to Lovers, and I think they're both bookish, which is always a grand time. Then we have Daisy Jones and the Six. This is about a band. I know the book is written like interview style. And it's kind of just about like the band's background. The story mainly follows Daisy Jones, I believe. And yeah, everybody like loves the book, loves the TV show, so put it on the TBR, you know? Then we have Bad Summer People. I'm pretty sure this is a mystery. Other than that, I do not remember very much. I know what the cover looks like, and I'm 85% sure it's a mystery with maybe a subplot of romance. I'm not sure. I know I read the back of it in a Barnes probably one day, and I was like, let's do it. Next book is Summer Reading. I know that this is a romance, and I know that the guy is bookish and the girl is not. Other than that, I have no clue. But I definitely do like that premise that like she is the bookish one or he is the bookish one and she is the one that doesn't love reading. I think even in like on like the back of the book it says like if she could, she would never touch a book ever in her entire life. Which makes me kind of sad because books are awesome, but to each their own. The next book is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I know people have mixed feelings about this book, but we're going to read it anyways because it's Emily Henry, and she invented summer reads. That's not true. Ellen Hilderbrand invented summer reads. But I love her writing, and I don't know, I want to read all of Emily Henry's books. So obviously I'm going to read Happy Place, and I'm very excited. I also need to read Funny Story, but I am on hold for that on Libby, so I have to wait several months for that. Then I have When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect. This is the first and second book in the Rome, Kentucky series. I believe that's what it is. It's an interconnected standalone series. The first one is When in Rome. Second one is Practice Makes Perfect. The first one is about a singer that wants to go to Rome. So she goes to the closest Rome she can, which is Rome, Kentucky. And she meets a baker. Pretty sure he's a baker. Or a farmer. I'm pretty sure he's a baker, though, because they cover they're baking like a pie or something. The second one is about the guy main character from When in Rome's sister and the girl main character from When in Rome's bodyguard. So it's a bodyguard romance. More than likely gonna be Grumpy Sunshine. I think he's like teaching her how to date or something like that, which is very interesting. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And I'm forgetting the author's name. Sarah Adams. She writes clean romance. So if you're looking for some clean romance, I do know that her books, I just threw that at myself. I do know that her books are clean romance. And then the last one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have heard that this book is mind-blowing and that the twist is interesting, to say the least. I don't know what it is. This is the only book with like a wild twist that hasn't been spoiled for me, okay? Rule of Wolves, ACOWAR, I will never shut up about spoiling Rule of Wolves for myself. Before I had even read King of Scars, by the way. Just want to let you know that I'm never going to stop talking about that. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I have. That's all the books on my summer TBR. Honorable mention would be Wild Love, but I already know I'm going to read that book this week, most likely. That is it for today's video. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload, which is on Mondays. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!